Okay, hello again, everybody. Hello out there. We got John Barry, who just got done with his own stream, by the way. I wasn't able to pop in. Mr. Rez, Rusar Vareth, The Shadow, Calamari, and Ray is here. Heck yeah, you finally made it to us. Ray Mueller in the house. Hey, Ryan, welcome, welcome, welcome. And if I missed anybody, I'm sorry. Say hello again, and I will say hello this time. But thank you all for being here as we talk. It's the end of the Clone Wars.
The end of the Clone Wars.
The end of the Clone Wars. It's over. It's done. I am so tired because the episodes usually drop. Caleb's here. Hello, Caleb and Zolan. The episodes usually drop like when my shift starts at work, and so I can't watch them till I get home. But because this dropped at like midnight local time, I just woke up earlier and watched it. So I didn't have to so anyway, and I already went to bed late because it was Sunday after having a long week. So what I'm saying is I'm tired, but it's gonna be a good chat.
Oh my goodness! I literally just tweeted out. I was like, "Get ready for mushy brains, trust tree, buddy cop, everything, etc." Talk.
Who knows where it's gonna go this time?
So much happened. So much happened. I don't know where it's going.
Oh, it's man. But yeah, so yeah, this picked up literally right where Shattered left off.
Mm-hmm.
Which I kind of wish I would have had time to watch them back to back, but I didn't wake up that much earlier for my shift, so I wasn't able to. But like the way I felt about it was really well done. Same thing like everyone's been saying this whole time. Like animation was amazing, music was amazing. It's just like the way they like the framing and cinematography in therein was so good. It felt more like to me like a 25-minute last scene than a last episode, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a vacuum, like if you just look at the episodes individually, Twilight and The Apprentice is still my favorite of these four. But I feel like if you were to sit down and watch all four of them, it would be like that spectacular last fourth of a Star Wars movie. Like almost always the last fourth is the best part of any Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like it follows that. What was your first impression of the episode?
So I saw your tweet because I was asleep last night. And so I saw your tweet, but I didn't have time to watch it before because I was at work this morning.
Yep.
And so seeing where it picked up, I'm lucky enough that my dad hasn't seen it yet. So we're going to go back and watch both of them back to back. So I'm going to get the chance to watch them both back to back today.
There you go.
But yeah, I realized throughout some of our earlier conversations, we were talking about like movie feel, TV feel. And I'm thinking now in my head that's coming off that I was like, oh yeah, movies are better than TV. And that's not true. They're just like different. And so I wanted to put that out there before I said, wow, this feels like a movie. Not just in its look and its feel, but the fact that we just picked up like right where we left off. And I actually really appreciated the way that happened. I think it would have been odd if there was like some kind of, I don't know, bump or something in the middle of it.
Right.
But yeah, love the smooth transition in the episode. It was a good episode.
It was solid. Like I really didn't know where it was gonna go, but then the whole thing, it being a massive escape, makes sense. And there were a lot of emotional beats. I feel like Ahsoka's journey in this arc and her previous one is so interesting to me, and it's largely interesting because I think, and I know I've said this on some of the other streams, if you look at her story in the season 5 arc where she leads the Jedi, I feel like there's parallels there with her where she's being framed by the Jedi and she's mad at them for turning on her so fast, but then she does the same thing to Ventress. And like there's been this journey with her where she's trying not to be the bad parts of being a Jedi, and kind of sussing out what that means. But then you have like her with the Martez sisters, and she's a little bit more like, overbearing is not the right word, but she was like, we can't do spice.
Yeah.
And then she like had to figure out that it's not really that simple when you're not a Jedi and you can just find a speeder somewhere and zoom away.
Yeah.
And like I think her thing in this arc that I found interesting that I think is intentional. Like I don't say this necessarily as a complaint. I think it meant to do it. I just wish that they had driven it home a little bit clearer. Is the most interesting to me with her character was she was so bent on not killing any of the clones, which I thought was great. You know, she wanted to stun them. I think you froze. Are we? Are you? Do I still have you? Oh no. Maybe she really didn't like where my point was going. Are you back? Hello. Caca! Caca!
You broke up there for a second. It was so terrible.
Are we back? Are we back together?
Yeah.
No? Okay, good.
I was like, so many good points are being made right now, and I don't know what they are.
I was saying how, like, in this arc, I think what was going on was intentional. I wish it was driven home a little bit more, but she was so bent on not killing any of the clones and, like, stunning them,
Yeah.
which I think is good. And I think it's a testament to her character that even though they're trying to murder her, she recognizes that it's outside of their control. But then she still releases Maul. And there's like that moment with Rex where he's like, you did what? And so she's like telling
What?
Rex, I won't be the one to kill the clones, and we're not going to do this. I'm like, yeah, but you let Maul go, and Maul's going to kill clones. And like the whole ship crashes because of Maul. So like, do you like at what level is Ahsoka still responsible for the death of all of those clones? I mean, granted, it's different, but at the same time, but it seems like a very Jedi prequel Jedi era kind of a thing to be like, I have to do this, but the ramifications, you know, I'm not going to take them on. And I think that's so interesting with her, and I think it's a great character point. I really want to see, I know we have the Ahsoka novel, and I know we spent some time with her in Rebels, and maybe they do this in Rebels, and I'm not remembering. But I want to see that point where I think, even though she is so grown up and she's gone through so much, I think for me, the point where she really kind of becomes a quote unquote grown up is when she realizes, I am exactly what I've been running from. And how does she like become the Ahsoka we know more in Rebels? I just talked for a really long time, but like that was what was on my mind through the whole episode.
No, yeah, and this could have been where the connection kind of broke up a little bit, but I completely agree. I think about when she's with Trace and Rafa, and I don't remember who they were talking, like at one point, all this happened, house destroyed, home destroyed, and they're just like, may the force be with you. And they kept going.
Yep.
And that's essentially what she just did.
Yep.
And she heard the story and she saw, like with her own eyes, the ramifications of what that means.
Yep.
And yet, in the heat of the moment, still does the exact same thing.
Yep.
So it's like, this is ingrained in you. And it's not something that's just going to go away.
Right.
You either work past it or you let it still be a part of you.
Yep. Yeah, and like I think, I mean, a lot of people point out she's like 17 in this episode, so I'm not expecting her to have like gone to full realization of her whole life in this moment, and I don't have that expectation for her in Clone Wars, but I would love to see that realization get dealt with somewhere down the line. But yeah, I think it was Luminara who did the thoughts and prayers for you as the as the Jedi killed your family. Luminara, thoughts and prayers unduly.
Yes.
And suddenly Barriss makes a lot more sense. And
yes, unfortunately.
And but no, that was just something that was interesting, and I kind of wonder what's going through her mind in that final scene where she's burying the clones, and if she kind of aware of what's going on there. But like there's just she frees Rex, but they don't try to free Jesse. They don't try to free anybody else. They had all of the clones knocked out in the hallway, and if you knew where the chip was, but like, do they have time? They probably don't have time. Maul's running around. They're all trying to kill them, and there was just. I think this final episode was the shortest of any of the Mandalore episodes, which is frustrating because it's like it's the same thing that happened with some of the stuff in the Bad Batch arc, where it's like it just needed like just that 5 more minutes, and it was like you would, but like I don't want to sound nitpicky or like I didn't like it, especially because the stuff that I'm
Mhm.
talking about can absolutely be addressed in an Ahsoka comic, for those of us who read comics, or
Yes, for those of us who read comics.
sorry.
I'm gonna go buy a comic today.
It would have been free comic book day, everybody, unfortunately. But alas, the Rona. But no, like it's not really a nitpicky. It's not like I'm mad at the series forever, but I'm really hoping that as they tell more Ahsoka stories in the future, it's something they get addressed, because that's the most interesting thing to me as a Jedi freak, as somebody who loves the Jedi for all of their flaws and how complicated they are, especially the prequel era Jedi. I'm like, this is such a great case study. Ahsoka is a perfect
Yeah.
case study for what's wrong with the Jedi, and how they can still be like good, but have these flaws, and how easy it is to be a part of the system and not see the problems you're causing. And I'm just really excited for like, oh, I want that story where she figures it out, you know?
I completely agree, and I also want that story, even if it's in comic book form. I'll read it.
Sorry. I'm a little sassy today, as we were discussing before the stream. It's the whole
It's a
lack of
good day
sleep
to be
thing.
sassy.
It's a good sassy day. Up there on the sasser key. But kind of going through my notes here. I like that Maul picked up the wrist gauntlet. He still had it. Because like
Yes.
the boy was thinking. I thought that was a cool detail.
He was. I also appreciated that detail because it kept the plot going. One thing for me personally, whenever I take in any entertainment, is if it has like large amounts of swearing. Like I don't mind swearing in things or violence or any of that, like to an extent.
Yeah.
But I like it to have purpose.
Yes.
And so remembering that like someone got their arm chopped off, I was like, okay, so that's violence. Guess what? That violence has a purpose. Now he can hear their so like I would have not forgotten, but like kind of just like, okay, something super violent happened. Let's keep rolling. And I wouldn't have been like something I was really like hardcore. This shouldn't it's Star Wars.
Right.
But I also like that the violence had a purpose.
Right.
I really appreciated that.
I like that too, and I thought it was interesting. Like as Maul was running, you know, he did things that are so destructive, in how he brought the ship down, but also wasn't just murdering all of the clones he could find. He was still sneaking around, and I think that's the sign of like a well-honed dark side user. Like I think it's really easy to be a dark sider and be like, I can just wreck everybody. But like then to be able to have that rage and have that power, but be like, okay, yeah, but I have to really get off this ship and I'm gonna think through it. And I think Maul from like Phantom Menace would have wrecked everybody on the ship, and Maul from Clone Wars would do what he needed to do to just get off the ship. And I think it's a subtle way of showing that character growth for him.
Yeah, it also makes me think of his chaotic energy, which, works with some of the lines that, we got in this episode and the last episode. But it also makes me think of that moment when, he's first initially caught and he starts, the feral screaming of how everyone's going to die, etc. And like, you don't really see that again. He could have like gone exactly into that in this moment, even as the person who brought the ship down, he could still go into that when he got out. And he didn't. It was all very, very calm, which how I was like, besides, knowing more like Rebels and more material, knowing that he's going to be okay. It was like, okay, we're still being calculated here. We still have some kind of plan here. We're not yelling. We're not seeing that like unpredictableness yet. Or that aspect of unpredictableness yet. And so Maul's just an interesting like character study.
He is, and he was one of like I always thought he looked cool, and I always liked that fight from Phantom Menace, but I didn't really like Maul until Clone Wars. And so it's been really cool with this series to see him become more calculated. Cal in the chat says his class is obviously assassin. He didn't invest his skill points into stealth for no reason, which, I mean, it's pretty accurate.
Oh, and that's another thing that I never really thought of, but you get this introduction to this character in the Phantom Menace who looks really cool.
Yep.
Like, doesn't say a bunch of things, and that's everyone's first thought. Fights cool, looks cool.
Yep.
And then you get the Clone Wars where it's like, okay, but this guy talks. Yeah. This guy talks well, and this guy talks a lot.
Yep.
And then to me, that ended up being the most interesting thing about him, what he decides to say, how he says it, and what he's saying. And so, like, yeah, he still looks cool, but I was like, forget how he looks. What is he saying? And so I think that's so interesting that it starts out like looks, appearance only, and it turns into an orator right there.
Yeah.
Very persuasive.
And then I would agree, Ray in chat says, I'd argue Maul is one of the most fleshed out characters in canon. And, like, he really has become that. I wasn't even, like, on board with his return in Clone Wars when it was just announced. Clone Wars was a whole different venture when you didn't know where it was, like, really where it was going and if it was going to be good or not. So that was one of the things where I was like, I'm a little nervous, and then it ended up being really good. And I was like, okay, I'm still not sure I like the idea, but the execution was so good that I'll roll with it. Is kind of how I feel. But you know, I like just what you were saying about how he stays calculated. Still hates Spider Maul, gross. That was wild. That was definitely his crazier time. But with Maul, to kind of go back to the point I was saying about Ahsoka, is I really like when he's running for the shuttle and he just yells back like, "This is the chaos you wanted." And like that was one of the points where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure the episode is aware of the thing I want it to be aware of, even if it's not beating me over the head with it. Is like that line of, this is what you wanted. Like, you wanted me to cause chaos, I'm gonna crash the ship. And that kind of realization. And all that scene where he's wrecking the hyperdrive.
Oh my gosh. It was beautiful. I understand terrible things were happening, but it was beautiful.
Just the way it was
but the other thing I think about with that line is, did Ahsoka fully understand what she was asking of Maul when he was like, when she was like, go be a distraction or anything? Or was it one of those short-sighted, okay, have to get out, he would be a distraction? You know, because obviously she's fought him, she's learning who he is, she's learned who he is, she's heard stories about him, she was like, you are hard to kill, etc. But like, did she fully understand what she was letting go?
Right.
And what he was going to do? And I have to say, probably not.
Probably not. I mean, if she only knows him from Mandalore, yes, he killed clones there, but like there were also Mandalorians there. She, you know, the only time she really faced him, he let a clone go, and like faced her in combat. So she might not have fully understood the ramifications, especially if she does have any kind of sympathy for his plight at all. You know, or even just that desperation survival sense of like, I have to do something. I don't remember who it was. Somebody in the chat was saying that it may have been that she was just hopeful that the clones would just recapture him. Like the sheer numbers, he wasn't maybe going to be able to do as much, and it would just distract him for a time. But it, you know, I thought that was well done, and it for a character who's in no way resolved and largely gets a big grand re-entrance in Rebels. I thought you had as much conclusion as you could with the character, you know, just flying away.
Yeah, most definitely.
I thought that was good. We were talking about Jedi Fallen Order before the stream. I really thought the planet that they were going to crash on was going to be a planet from that game, because in that game there's a planet called Zeffo, and there's a crashed ship like that, and I thought it was going to be a connection, and then it wasn't, and it really was never going to be for any number of reasons. But I was like, it'd be kind of cool, and then I got really excited for a second because that planet has a lot of snow on it, and then I was like, no, it wasn't, because it was a moon and not a planet. But I thought that would have been a cool connection that it didn't do. Hey Dale, welcome. But that was just neither here nor there. For those of you out there who played it, I was really hoping it was going to end up being Zepho. So Rex, we haven't talked a lot about Rex yet. I loved his line when they were in the main, like the control room or whatever, and he said like, if they weren't trying to kill us, I'd be so proud. Which is such a Rex line. This was rough because Rex was like the first Clone Wars character I liked. Obviously, I liked Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda, and like, but like in terms of characters introduced to us in the show, Rex was my favorite character, and so to see him along there, like he's another one. I really want to know what he does after this. Like if we can get even like a Rex novel or something, because like we were saying in last stream, he killed some of his brothers to protect Ahsoka. He was like, we're going to have to kill them to get off of here. And you can tell it's wrecking him, but he's just torn. Like, I don't think he wants to necessarily give up on the clones, but he just knows they won't give up. And he probably figures the only way he can, like, save this is to save Ahsoka.
Yeah. This episode had me really surprised. So when I watched the Clone Wars, it was like, it's about to leave Netflix. Hurry up and binge everything. And so coming out of the Clone Wars, besides Obi-Wan and Anakin, I was like, I really like Ahsoka and I really like Cody. And then coming back, I was like, okay, let's vaguely remember, who I like, get reintroduced to the series. And even as we were watching the season, I was like, oh, hey, there's Rex. He's pretty cool. But he's not like my favorite. And like these last few episodes, I've just been like, no, he's my favorite.
Yep.
I would die for him.
I would die for Rex.
Love him. And then he ended up having my favorite moment, probably in the entirety of the Clone Wars, in this episode. And I was like, don't know where these feelings came from, but they're punching me in the face right now.
What was that?
I welcome this.
What moment was the moment that did it for you?
It was when Ahsoka took off his helmet and he was crying. And I wrote down the quote, and it's like, he hates to tell you this, they're not going to care. And he's like, those are my brothers, my soldiers. And I was like, I have never wanted to hold someone as much as I do in this moment.
Yep.
You are a good soldier. I love you.
You're just trying. You're trying so hard. Oh, Rex. I mean, like even going through earlier episodes in past seasons, he was the one who found the deserter clone and had to like wrestle with how he felt about that. And Rex has always had a little bit more heart, I think, than everybody else. I fell for him in the movie, like the Clone Wars movie. There's a part where they're like all surrounded, and he pops out of the rubble and he's like, we got you outnumbered, and the droids start counting, like, to see if they're actually outnumbered, and then they get wrecked by some starfighters that were flying in, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but he's my new favorite character. So, like, if even, like, to anybody out there who might have found the Clone Wars movie a little rough around the edges, like, go back and watch it now, because, like, knowing where all the characters end up, that movie, I liked it anyway, but, like, it's so good. Knowing where everyone goes. The trolley Disney Plus, like, as soon as I had finished, it was like, because you watched Victory and Death, do you want to watch the Clone Wars movie? And I was like, no, I am not ready, Disney Plus. Do you think I am emotionally capable of just watching the movie now? I guess we're not all so free of detachment like you are. I was just very angry.
But that reminds me of everyone on Twitter who's like, anyone up for watching Revenge of the Sith now? And I'm like, no.
I was trying to get through all the Star Wars movies this weekend, and I got through the prequels, and then Solo was good because it was so lighthearted, and then I'm like, I can't do Rogue One. I can't do Rogue One the day after Revenge of the Sith. I can't. I can't. I'm not. No.
Oh, no. I can only be so much emotionally compromised in a day, and we have reached that point for me today.
I was like, I knew I was gonna have this episode, and I can only watch something where everyone dies so many times in a row.
Yeah. Well, and this is kind of on the track, but not really. I think most people know that The Rise of Skywalker isn't my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I really appreciated about the Clone Wars is it answered something that I think that the Rise of Skywalker kind of left, which
Yep.
is this idea of having these stolen kids, they're stormtroopers, and just killing them,
Yep.
and like never addressing that again. Well, I guess I should say that of the sequel trilogy, and then never like really addressing that. And then the Clone Wars gave me some serious addressing of that and
Yep.
seeing the tornness about it and trying to do something about it while still knowing that our characters can't really do anything. So it's still the same tragedy of clones died,
Yep.
just like stormtroopers died, but I got to see someone cry about it and understand the ramifications of their actions.
Yep.
And I was like, I got it, Star Wars, thanks. You gave it to me some kind of way. Thank you.
No, I agree, because like that was my thing with the idea of like a stormtrooper rebellion in the Rise of Skywalkers. It just wasn't, there just wasn't time, and like not even just in terms of just in terms of screen time. I mean, like one of the most ridiculous, like it's pretty. I love the Rise of Skywalker, and it's not a secret that I love the Rise of Skywalker. But one thing that helps me love the Rise of Skywalker is I forget that part in the movie where it says 36 hours. Like, if you just forget that the movie is supposed to be 36 hours, it's a much better movie. Like, in my head, that line's just not in the movie, and it's great. But, like, if they really only have however long it is, like, they don't have time to unbrainwash an entire society. But I get at least wanting to acknowledge that, and I understand like there could have been a line between, like another scene between Finn and Janna going like, this sucks, and like it wouldn't have bothered me if it was there. So I get that, but I feel like in Clone Wars it's so much easier to do that because the audience really cares. Like the general, first of all, you don't really have the same level of audience watching this as you do a film. But even then, like general viewers have been with the clones this long and they understand why it's a big deal versus, somebody who maybe watches the movies when they're on TNT going to the Rise of Skywalker like, why do they care about the stormtroopers now? I don't know why they care about the stormtroopers now. I thought they were the bad guys. Like, love it or hate it, The Rise of Skywalker was made for, like, Uncle Fred to understand. And it's okay if you hate that it was made for Uncle Fred to understand. But, like, it was made so that Uncle Fred knew what was going on. And, like, that's really what happened.
I mean, definitely. And I get those critiques, and I get the time constraints. So I knew that Clone Wars had the capacity and the time to do it. And so I'm glad,
they were able
did
to do it. But speaking of Rise, I did appreciate the moment of Ahsoka trying to stop the shuttle from flying away, which has conveniently gotten less discussion on Twitter, oddly enough, than when Anakin walked out on a bridge like Luke Skywalker. Odd how no one talks about it in the same way. I'm sassy today. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I immediately became that Leonardo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme. I was like, last time we get a moment from Last Jedi, now we're getting the Rise of Skywalker.
Yes. Ray says be sassy.
What?
Sassy Jess would be in so much trouble all the time, Ray.
Oh my goodness. Probably gonna tweet about it later because I really don't think enough people aren't talking about it. That was amazing.
I loved it.
To me.
And I liked too the contrast of like Rey is getting taunted by Kylo. And like he says that at the time, like he's trying to push her in the desert so she can like see her anger. And Rey at this point, and this is not to be a slight on Rey because I know there's a lot of like really weird Ahsoka versus Rey discourse out there that is moronic, that I don't want to accidentally take part in. But like Rey is at a point where she's facing kind of like this darkness for the first time, or at least this level of it, and freaks out and thinks she kills Chewie. Where Ahsoka could be angry at Maul, but instead lets go of Maul to go protect Rex, even though like she doesn't then know how they're gonna get out, even if she protects Rex. So like Ahsoka's kind of making the I don't know that better is really the right word, but like closer to the Jedi like way of
Yeah.
action there. But I mean, Ahsoka has also been a Jedi and had mentors in her life and
Yeah.
guidance, where Rey is like, you know, like she's
Yeah.
her mentors have been like her owner and a cynical old boomer on Facebook, and like she hasn't, and then Leia, but she's only had Leia for like a year, so like it takes a while for that to settle in. But like I liked that comparison of like, okay, really this is what Rey should have done, even though she thinks Chewie's being captured, you can still go rescue Chewie. Maybe you should deal with
Yeah.
the supreme leader that's right there and like deal with that instead of doing whatever it is you're doing with your immaculately shaved armpit. Like, you know, that's probably the part that bothers me the most in the Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, she somehow knew to shave. But anyway, sorry. I told you I'm sassy today.
You really, really are. It's great.
This is what happens
this is
when
the episode to be sassy on.
this is what happens when I stream sleep deprived.
No, but yeah, I will continually love the strings that connect the movies to the television shows. You know, I felt the exact same way when after, well, I guess some people are still watching The Mandalorian maybe in different countries, so
Yeah.
maybe spoiler for that right now. Please go away for 2.5 seconds. But like, you know, when you have this healing moment,
Yep.
and then the very like on Wednesday and then Thursday you go watch The Rise of Skywalker and it's like, oh, healing moment. So I very, very much appreciate
Yep.
interconnectivity and any lines of I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, this thing and the same goes to, you know, I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me that we
Yep.
got. I'm just like,
So good.
look at all this. It's all in Star Wars, even though I knew that.
It's connecting and it's doing things and it makes me happy. No, I love it.
Which is another thing. Well, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near an expert on the music. I've seen a lot of the times around Twitter when it's like, oh, this theme was also in this moment, and this is like, and etc. And I'm just like, oh, look at you guys, super smart and getting that. I dig it. This was familiar.
Yeah, it's like poetry, as they say. But
Yep,
hello, Rich, welcome. But yeah, no, I thought that was a cool moment. And the other thing that I kept thinking with both Ahsoka doing that and the way like that really boss move where she like cuts a hole in the floor, not holding her lightsabers, which was sweet. But it was really interesting to me because the other thing I kept thinking about was, you know, she's doing these really just crazy things that are not necessarily like, typically anytime we see Jedi doing really ridiculous force things, there's always that one person who's like, that's not for knowledge or defense, what were you doing? And like so it was just kind of interesting to see, like, you have this person who used to be a Sith and he's not a Sith anymore, and you have this person who used to be a Jedi and she's not a Jedi anymore, and they're just going to town on this Star Destroyer, just doing stuff. And I'm like, I'm here for this. But there's something kind of interesting in what I want to see like with Ahsoka. Is just like she has this raw, just this sheer power that we haven't really gotten to see from her. I think we have seen it, but like I don't think really to that degree, or at least until this arc. She was doing that really cool thing in the first episode where she was like fighting in the sky, which was pretty sweet too. But that's just another thing that I find interesting, and I want to know after the fact, is she like, man, this was like my true potential and I should have been doing this all the time, or she like, man, I really overexerted myself and I shouldn't have done that? Like, what is her thought process? And like, really, we have so few characters that are not in an order. They are not a Jedi or a Sith or a part of a whatever, and I want to know, like, when you don't have a set of rules, how are you responding to things?
Well, and I didn't know there was Ahsoka versus Rey conversations happening.
It's really dumb. It's
so
like, don't look it up because it's dumb, and you will feel dumber if you listen to it.
So I don't want to contribute to it because you know, obviously. But one of the things I thought about is when we have that really cool moment where, you know, she's like cutting through the to the ground. I
Mm-hmm.
thought of the moment when Rey is going through her training course and she like
Yeah.
flings a lightsaber and she crosses her lightsabers. And I thought about the end of the Rise of Skywalker
Mm-hmm.
when Rey does it. And so I very much they think they're alike. And as you say that, I think about how they use the Force and how they use their lightsabers and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And Rey's at a different place in her training
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what it means to be a Jedi, but I also think they're very much in the same place where it's like they've been through things, so they don't use what they know. I think how traditionally a Jedi would say you're supposed to use X, Y, and Z, and that inventiveness, I think, is what makes them so unique and in whatever quest they have. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I see a lot of Rey happening in this Ahsoka, or if you want to look at timeline, probably a lot of Ahsoka
Yep.
happening in Rey, and I
Yep.
thought it was cool.
I like the connection, and just as a young person really trying to find their way, and like we had Luke in the original trilogy trying to find his way, but it was kind of a different thing. You know, he's somebody who would have had these powers but somehow didn't discover them until, I mean, I guess kind of around Rey's age, but I feel like it was different. I feel like even Luke took a lot longer to tap into his potential than Rey did. Like Rey just kind of fell into it faster. Probably for whatever reason, I think that's a part of Rey's character. But to like see these kind of young people who are currently without guidance finding their way through the Force. She was too busy farming, exactly. Like that's what's interesting to me, and I think it. The other thing I find interesting, people always talk about whether you fall on the side of like Jedi are all children, baby snatcher, kidnappers, or you fall on the side of understanding it. Like, you've seen The Mandalorian with Baby Yoda. Like, when you have somebody who's that force potential, like has that much potential at a young age, and they don't know what to do with it. Like, I just like seeing this explanation, at least for how people became so afraid of young people with force powers,
Yeah.
and the rawness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been going all over the place. My gosh. Another thing I appreciated about the episode was just this kind of, it was like this domino effect, which we kind of touched on. So like Ahsoka lets Maul go. Maul crashes the ship,
Mm-hmm.
but the clones like killed all the escape pods, so they couldn't use an escape pod. So then,
Right.
like between the clones and Ahsoka's actions, the ship is doomed. And I didn't really pick up on it the first time I watched the episode, but the second time, watching all of the clones stand there in a line, knowing that they were gonna die. Like at that, I didn't realize it till the second time I watched it that like they weren't standing there to beat Ahsoka and win. They were literally standing there for like, if we delay her long enough, we'll all die. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, like that's intense.
I think you said it in the last stream.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I don't know, maybe I was listening to a podcast on Twitter or something, but someone was saying it's really nice to have like a clear definition of what Order 66 was, like
Mm-hmm.
to hear someone explain it. And this just adds the layer of, okay, it's not just, like kill all the Jedi. It's like anything possible to the extent of giving up there's like depth to that
Yep.
that I did not fully realize was there until we got this episode. And I was like, oh, this is fully what Order 66 means.
Yeah.
And it was tragic before, but wow, is it extra tragic now?
Yeah. I don't know that I said that specifically, but I agree with it. And I liked in this episode too, we got clarification that of why they were going after Ahsoka and presumably Maul. Because Rex came out there and he's like, Ahsoka's not a Jedi. Hey, Corellian conversations with my friend Georgie. Like he's like, this is why we wouldn't kill her. She's not a Jedi. It's fine. And then Jesse's like, these super totes actually got a message about her though. Rex is like, did we though? And like that conversation, but I mean, I appreciated that. So it was like, okay, because we didn't get to see Rex's conversation with Sidious in Shattered.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably it was like execute Order 66 and also kill Ahsoka and Maul, which would also
Mm-hmm.
explain why he would have gotten like a specific message. Um, it, but you know, I think I don't know. I thought that was cool to get that clarification as well. I think I lost her. I think she froze again. You back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. For a second there, it was just small.
um, and then just seeing Rex fighting Jesse was a lot because he's like the
It was a
other
lot.
other than Rex, he's like the last surviving regular we have.
Mm-hmm. I think, and I didn't think about this until now, but you get the Anakin Obi-Wan fight in
Mm-hmm.
Revenge of the Sith, and it's like, oh wow, you're my brother. This tears me up, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like they just wanted to tear me up in that exact same way again, but in this show, and I was like, well, you succeeded. Thank you.
Yep. Like, oh great, this is nice. Now I feel horrible because like everything's terrible and everyone's fighting. Yeah, it's just
Wow.
well, it's just in that realization that like you through this episode, you know that Maul's gonna live and Ahsoka's gonna live and Rex is gonna live, and then suddenly it hits you. It's like nope, all of these other clones are just going. Um,
Yeah.
and
And I think especially that gets really shocking when you think about the fact that, and we talked about this earlier with Dave Filoni, who's
mm-hmm.
like, okay, but why do they have to die? Why can't we have this really cool, like, circumventional way? So if you have that in your head and
Yep.
you know that about Dave Filoni, for a second you're like, okay, but why do they have to die? Couldn't they, like, I don't know, have the same thing that Rex had done? Could they live? And it's like, no,
Nope.
this time they have to die. And I'm just like, okay, it's because
Dang.
we're in the middle of Revenge of the Sith and it's tragic.
Filoni. Rich just said in the chat the clone trooper memorial at the end, so jumping ahead a little bit, was a nice inverse homage to the stormtroopers' pikes in The Mandalorian, which was something I thought about on the second viewing as well. So again, more of those connections.
Yeah.
Although I'm not surprised that Filoni's putting connections to Mando in it, considering he's involved. But I thought that was neat. I do have a lot to say about the ending too. I'm just figure it's at the end. I didn't know a less blunt way to put that.
Well, one thing I was gonna say is I don't think enough people are talking about the droids.
Yeah,
especially because we have to see the droids die.
That was
or
that.
Not see, but hear.
It was the Clone Wars has this way of like, okay, yeah, I'm watching like wars and I'm aware there's this tragedy, and then they're like, but the droids die too, and I'm like, this is the last straw. Give me something. Give me anything.
And it's the fact that Ahsoka repeatedly, says their name. She's like, Gigi, R7, all these things.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I know your name. I know who you are.
Yep.
You're helping out. And then I gotta watch you die.
This is like, this is cruel. This is cruel. It reminded me of in Rogue One. I think the point where I knew it was really, really going south was when K2SO died. I was like,
yeah,
this isn't gonna go well. This
no,
is...
Sometimes K2 is actually like my favorite droid, and sometimes when I see him, I just hear climb in my head, and I'm like, and I'm done for the day. That's enough to make me done for the day.
See, this is not helping me have the mental fortitude to like watch it next, because it's next to my rewatch, and it's just like hanging over. Because like at least with Revenge of the Sith, even though it's really tragic, it's also like the movie I have the most nostalgia for, so like that gets me through the pain. But like Rogue One has only been around a couple of years. I don't have the nostalgia for it yet, so it's like only pain, and I'm like, why? I just have to remind myself that I'm strangely attracted to Ben Mendelsohn, and maybe that will get me to watch the movie.
That's enough. That's all it takes.
That's like the one thing. I'd be like, until I have to watch him die, and then I'll be like, All of you with your like really great villain crushes like Maul, and my villain crush is a weird bureaucrat, so I don't know what that says about me, but okay. I'm just gonna watch my bureaucrat die today, I guess.
Oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Hey, once you caught feelings, it became a tragedy.
Someone has to love the bureaucrat. Someone has to. Even bureaucrats deserve love sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you, Georgie. Ben is cute though, so accurate. Thank you. I just needed a little bit of validation. And his lisp, it does anyway. It's not that
Well, as soon as you said that, all I heard is the breaches have been filled.
Oh man. So Clone Wars. So I think Gina's cutting in and out again.
Casually wait.
There we go. Are you back?
Yep.
Okay.
It's raining here. Probably what it is. It got like just a big thunderclap, so that's fun.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move it along then, in case something terrible happens. I wasn't sure if it was like an actual poetry or rhymes moment, or if it just was a thing that happened. But like, I liked how in the first episode you have Ahsoka doing all that cool stuff, like fighting all the jetpack guys in space, or not in space, but in the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And then here, this episode ended with her like trying to get into Rex's ship. So like, I wasn't sure how intentional that was, but I liked it. And just seeing like, we don't get to see a lot of like Jedi trying to not fall to their deaths, so that was a cool thing. It was just go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it's just a cool comparison. It's like, yes, they're trying to get somewhere. Yes, they're trying to get Maul, so it's very serious. But let's take a second just to see, like someone who was a Jedi with Jedi abilities be cool. And now it's like, okay, now let's see those abilities actually used to like stay alive.
Right? Yeah. Well, I just like seeing them together because they really are the two characters that got added from Clone Wars. Like, if you watched the movie, even Ventress was in the micro series before the regular, or before this 3D series. So like, they were the two new characters. And so seeing them together at the end of it, when they couldn't be with anybody else, I thought that was cool. I was seeing some people talk about it in the chat. One thing I really wanted to see, and maybe it was too much to kind of hope that we get it, but I also wanted to see, like, I really wanted to see Rex find Gregor and Wolf, and like how that story goes. And that doesn't mean we won't get it, but like, I feel like the ending, I'm really torn, because on one hand, the ending is so, like, the moment is so beautiful, the imagery is so beautiful, the music is so beautiful, the emotions are great, and on the other hand, it's like, okay, but we weren't really left with, it's like, we're left with, there's Ahsoka and there's Rex, and we know they're both gonna go do things. And like, we weren't, like, I wanted some kind of like goodbye. Like, I guess I wanted to see like their parting of ways. And I feel like that's kind of the one thing. If I'm going to have a nitpick, I think that's the one thing I would nitpick. Is I really wish I could have seen their parting of ways. But to do that, you would have to have messed up the sequence they had. And so, like, it's one of those, you're going to get this really good thing or you're going to get that really good thing, but, like, they really can't exist in the same space. So, like, I get it. But that's really, like, I felt like it just kind of ended. And for like, and it was just like, and you'll see the conclusion in the other series, in a way where it probably would have I think it would have ended it more definite if it had ended and we didn't, like, they didn't have Rebels yet.
Yeah, for sure. I think from an outside logistic point of view, you have that reason why they did that. And then to me, also, I think it just adds to the feeling of, oh my goodness, all these things just happened. I
Yeah.
feel kind of empty inside. I feel kind of missing inside because that's how all these characters feel,
Mhm.
after this. Then also, we know that there's other series where they, pick up where their storylines go. So I think it's both. It's like Revenge of the Sith is happening right now. Other things are happening.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, now go finish these other things
Yeah.
and continue to feel a little empty until we get the hope back.
Yep. And I think I was talking to a friend of mine who, I don't know, we were having this discussion in DM, so I don't want to like out her if she didn't want her critique said publicly, but we were talking, and she kind of pointed out that like even Revenge and Rogue One, that are like really downer movies, end on like a hopeful note, and this did not. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, this did not end on a hopeful note at all, and like I don't think that's like, like The Last Shot is one of my now most favorite images in all of Star Wars. So like, I'm not complaining about The Last Shot, but it is interesting that I don't think they left us on any kind of up note at all at the end of the. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to know why. Like, I don't know that I like that or don't like that. I'm just curious why. Like, I kind of want to hear Dave say like what his purpose. Like, was it a commentary on war? Was it he just really liked
Mm-hmm.
that shot? Like, I'm just kind of curious. But like, how did you
Well,
feel
to me,
about that?
it's also the strangeness isn't a good word, but the
Mhm.
strangeness that is the Clone Wars.
Mhm.
Because you have this series that is a bunch of arcs and not like all the way, well, it's all the way full through, but it's a bunch of little stories in this one giant series that was on, and then they thought they weren't going to, and I feel like we all know the history of the Clone Wars. But to me, because of that weird, complicated history that is the Clone Wars, and then how
Mhm.
they decide to have it as a show of arcs,
Mhm.
it makes sense in that context
Yeah.
because it's not like every other piece of Star Wars that we've ever gotten, which um well, I won't say this because I don't know everything about Resistance, but got to tell its full story,
Mhm.
etc., the way they wanted to, and was fully leading into whatever the next story is. It's all those things, and yet it's
Mhm.
also a different type of beast. So I feel like for the purpose, like knowing the outside world context
Yeah.
and then also understanding the Star Wars context,
Right.
that ending makes sense for Clone Wars. Like if it had
Yeah.
been some other series that went straight through, that would have been weird. But for
Mhm.
Clone Wars, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. Ray in the chat asked if to both of us if we like open-ended stories. Yes or no? I like we're more into open-ended stories. I think than not.
So that's actually changing for me.
Mhm.
If you had asked me this maybe like 4 years ago,
Mhm.
I would have said no, and I would have said that everything has to have a happy ending. And I
Mhm.
have since learned that it doesn't have to be a super happy ending to be satisfactory. I think
Mhm.
that's what it is because that ending was satisfactory to me, and it
Yeah.
was still open ended, and it wasn't like happy.
Right.
And so now I really do, as long as I have that satisfaction key. And I can't give you a definition of
Right.
what will leave me, like satisfied because I didn't know how this show's going to end. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh no, that's actually really great for me. And it's probably not great for someone else.
Mhm.
But I can take open ended or sad ending as long as I feel satisfied at the end.
That's fair. I think for me, when I look at stories, I mean, it depends on the type of story. Like, even what you're saying here
Mm-hmm.
with Clone Wars, like, it makes more sense for Clone Wars to end how it does than, say, Rebels to end like this. Especially just because of the time period it's set in. Like, it's set in a time where bad stuff's happening. I think, though, in terms of, like, open ended or not, I prefer things get wrapped up in what the story is, but then I like the setup of, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the end of Return of the Jedi, it ends with things resolved, right? Like they supposedly like killed the Emperor. It didn't really work out so well, but they thought they killed the Emperor, like, and they thought they had it all figured
Mm-hmm.
out. So like that trilogy was resolved. And I'm mostly doing this just to avoid talking about Rise of Skywalker again, so I'm talking about a less controversial ending. but like it looked,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you knew. But like it looked like all the stories were resolved. But then there was this openness of Luke's a Jedi,
Mhm.
like Han and Leia are gonna get together. Like I like knowing that the story doesn't stop where we stop, but I
Mhm.
also like resolution. And so I like
Yeah.
endings that are transitions into the next phase, which we may or may not get. I don't know if that really answers the question or if I'm actually describing every story ever, but like that's how I feel.
Well, I mean that makes sense to me, and it also makes me think the ending, this ending of the Clone Wars, is actually super similar to
Mm-hmm.
me for Revenge of the Sith, because I agreed with the person that you were talking to. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem very hopeful, but then I
Right.
thought about, so you have Revenge of the Sith, and we have Vader now, but
Mm-hmm.
the hope is that Luke and Leia exist, and they're
Yeah.
with good families now, and we know because we already have the original trilogy that they're gonna, grow up, do great things. Vader's gonna be redeemed,
Yep.
etc. And so the hope at the end of the Clone Wars is that Rex and Ahsoka survive, and we know that they're gonna go out, do great things,
Mm-hmm.
help other people. And so in that way, knowing that they make it, that's hope to me. Even if it's not explicitly said, because it's not Rogue One where hope is said, or it's not Revenge of the Sith where we get to see the twin sons. It's
Mm-hmm.
still hopeful,
Right.
kind of, if you want to see it that way.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think there's also like as you see, I can't. I'm bad at pronouncing the name. The name of the owl is like Morai or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm a bad fan because I don't remember the name of the obscure owl, but I'm sorry. I'm also having an argument with Georgie in the comments, and it's distracting me. But like, um, uh, even though it's not the last shot, I think seeing the owl also helps because we know that there's a connection with
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka there. Even though I don't fully know what that means, and a lot of people are talking about Vader holding the saber at the end, which I can barely handle that. Like first of all, seeing Darth Vader in the suit in Clone Wars, I didn't think
No.
we'd get it,
Mm-mm.
and like I didn't dare to dream. And then seeing him like holding the Ahsoka saber, and and like seeing Darth Vader holding a blue lightsaber anyway, and it's technically a saber he made, but it's his like Padawan's lightsaber also. And then like what's crazy about the shot is, if I'm remembering it correctly, it's one of the Ahsoka helmets. So
Yeah.
he's in the visor of a clone that's like the face of his Padawan. And I haven't really sussed out entirely what that symbolism is, but I know there's a lot going on
Yeah.
there. Um, and that to me that was just a powerful image. I don't know if you've seen the reflection art pieces. I can't remember the name of the artist, but I saw them through Star Wars Card Trader like 2 years ago. But there's like a series of Star Wars art that's called Reflections, and it's like Boba Fett's helmet, and you can see like Han in the visor and stuff like that. They're really cool art
Cool.
pieces, and it made me think of that art for anybody else who knows what I'm talking about. Um, but I don't know, I liked it, and the shot with Vader picking up the saber, I kind of wonder too why Ahsoka left it. So like
Mm-hmm.
in the novel, in the Ahsoka novel, I don't remember it all word for word, but it ends where Ahsoka and Rex have faked their deaths, and so she leaves her sabers at a grave to say she's dead. Don't come looking for me. This felt different than that. It didn't feel like she was leaving it behind, especially like who's gonna bury the bodies. Like if anybody actually
Mm-hmm.
noticed there were graves there, which the snow covered them, so they didn't. But this felt more, and this isn't like I'm really not that worried about the continuity of the novel because all of the flashbacks are really not important to the greater story. They're great flashbacks,
Yeah.
but they don't like the story can exist with them being changed and it's fine. But like, I just wonder what is Ahsoka's thought process, and it goes back to what I was saying about her journey. Like, does she leave the saber behind to hide her tracks? Does she leave the saber behind because she thinks I wasn't being a Jedi? Like, is that the moment that she
Mm-hmm.
realizes these clones are dead because of her actions, and she leaves the saber behind
Mm-hmm.
again? I don't know. No, the
As
Rich.
someone,
Oh, sorry.
oh,
I would say Rich asked, were they graves though? The second time I watched it, they're graves. You can see there's piles
Yeah.
of dirt. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine because I didn't notice that they were graves either until the second time. But as someone who has no idea what happened in the book because I didn't read the book, when I watched that moment, my first thought was, so we've had this whole walkabout episodes where she's like, I'm not really a Jedi anymore, still very much acting like a Jedi. We get to see Mandalore, still very much acting like a Jedi, even though she's like, I'm a citizen, not yet all these things. And so when I got to that moment, I saw it as I don't think we've seen her fully be like, I'm not a Jedi anymore. I think part of her even knows she still is holding on to it, at least in her actions. And so I saw it as okay, this is going to be the beginning of me appreciating everything taught and where I came from, but I cannot be a Jedi anymore.
Right. And I mean, right to, in Rebel, she says, I'm no Jedi. And so I feel like there's so much story between Clone Wars and Rebels. And I have every confidence that Dave wants to tell it. Whether it's the live action rumors are true and she's gonna pop up in the Obi-Wan show, which I have mixed feelings about. I trust the people working on it, and if anybody can do it well, they can. But it's that if anybody can do it well part that has me worried. That or just some other way to tell that story. But I feel like Ahsoka is such an interesting character, and I'm glad that there's more to explore with her character. I think, so again, this isn't a complaint, but I really don't think we've seen everything, even with the novel. Like, I don't think we've gotten everything to tell for her between now and Rebels.
Oh, I completely agree. And it's the niceness of a unique character. I just feel like there's no one else like Ahsoka, and you can see so much about, it's like we said, so much about who the Jedi are supposed to be and who they were, etc., all reflected in her choices and her character. And I want to know more about that too. So
Rich is asking, do we think Maul or Vader could show up in the Obi-Wan TV show if they don't have to interact with Obi? Which is interesting.
So I will not, this will not turn into a rant.
Okay.
And I hate to have controversial opinions.
I have been sassy for an hour. It's fine.
I am one of those people who, and once again, if it's done well, it can turn out really great. But I'm one of those people who almost, when a character gets as big as Vader or Ahsoka or Maul, I don't like it when they appear in other things because then I think it suddenly becomes about them, rightly so, because they're interesting.
Right.
And suddenly you want to know everything about them, and suddenly you're not caring as much about your new characters. And this is where it gets kind of controversial. It's sort of how I feel about the sequel trilogy. I'm really glad we got to see where Luke, Leia, and Han end up. And I'm appreciative that they're in the story. But I think once you put them in there, it becomes about what happened to Luke, Leia, and Han, and not really where are Kylo, Ben, Rey, Finn, Rose, Poe going. To the point that I was talking with someone and I said something about the sequel trilogy characters, and they said, "Oh yeah, Luke, Leia, Han," and I was like, not really know who I was referring to. And so I'm appreciative when you get little threads to see where people go, but I do think once a character becomes big enough, it becomes about them and you kind of lose focus on your new characters. And so if it's done well, that'd be great. But if it's not, I very much do not want it.
I'm of a similar mind, especially with the Obi-Wan show. Because like the thing with the Obi-Wan show is, like, what would, if it's about Obi-Wan in his time, what would Vader or Maul be doing? Like, what would they, Maul, maybe Maul's with a crime syndicate or something. Actually, I don't know. I know we know when Obi-Wan's supposed to take place, but I don't remember, and I don't remember where that takes place in relation to Rebels. So I don't remember if Maul's even possible, and it might not be. Vader would just feel strange to me. Ahsoka, maybe not for Obi-Wan, but I think it'd be strange for Ahsoka, like where she's at. I think she's supposed to be isolated, and her getting to interact with Obi-Wan, and then like why put her in the show? Like for me, I think there's context where that can work though, because like then if you look at the Cassian series, which is about rebel spies, you could easily have a Vader cameo because Vader is on a planet for a parade and Cassian's there. But like then the context makes sense. Like Vader's in the background, or Cassian's in a situation and there's a crime syndicate and there's a shadowy figure. Like I think there are contexts where you can put in these big characters and they have show stealing moments, but they don't steal the whole show. And I think a show like Cassian way more likely to be something where you could see a cameo like that than something like Obi-Wan, where just because of the personal connection between Vader and Maul make that heavy. There is no personal connection that we know of between Vader and Maul and Cassian and the characters in Cassian. So you can have that go in and not change the course of the whole show. So if I were in charge of these things, I might put some of those cameos in, but I would be doing them in Cassian instead of Obi-Wan. Obi is supposedly, it's 5 or 6 years after Revenge of the Sith. But I'm a bad Rebels fan, and I don't remember what year Rebels ends in. But yeah. I think you're back. I think I lost you again for a brief second.
Oh, I'm here.
Yay! But yeah, that was my little thing.
It's definitely true. It's not like I don't want to see anyone.
Right.
I just want it to make sense, and I don't want it to feel cartoony in the point that like if Vader were to show up like an Obi-Wan show, to be like either they like never see each other and they're like tiptoeing around each other, and it doesn't feel like the right kind of tension. It's just like cartoony and like they never see each other.
Well, that's literally what happens with Anakin and Grievous throughout all of the Clone Wars.
And yet somehow that worked for me. So it's
situational. Well, it is cartoony, so you know.
Yeah.
But it's just like and it's one of those. I wonder how many times Filoni went, George, why did you have to write that one line where they hadn't met before? If you had just not written that one line, my whole life would be so much easier. But no, they didn't meet until the end of the war, apparently, George. Just like.
Or we could all just stop caring about continuity and canon. No.
That's never gonna happen. Nah. What would be the fun if we didn't have things to be mad about?
That's true.
I was talking to one of my friends who was live streaming earlier, and I was talking to his chat, and he'd finally seen The Rise of Skywalker. And he was just talking about how, like, he didn't know a whole lot of lore, but he was, like, mad that something wasn't canon anymore. And I was like, all it takes to be a Star Wars fan is to know just enough to be mad about something. And you're good.
Yep. That's what it is.
Like, we always say, like, the only thing you need to be a fan is to like it. And I'm like, no, the only thing you need to be a fan is to not like something. That's when you've made it.
I became a Star Wars fan with The Rise of Skywalker. It's the first time I ever didn't like something.
And you felt, now you have that.
I've made it.
You made it. Welcome. I think my first thing was Karen Traviss novels, so you made it longer than I did. But that's a whole rant that I will not go on this stream. Are we talking about Seer? Are we talking about God, Queen, Jedi, Seer, Junda in my chat? Because we should, all of the time. Sorry, she's from Jedi Fallen Order, and she's like my favorite character in the game. The Jedi would know Obi-Wan.
I'm like...
Oh, Frozen. You said you were like, what?
Oh, I was going to say that's like one of the few things I knew. Twitter told me about ponchos, and I remember watching your stream and talking about her, and I was like, these are the two things I know.
You need to know that ponchos are useless, and don't use them. And Seer did nothing wrong in her whole life, and I will go on about that forever.
Yep.
And it was unintentional, but so me, that the character that everyone else loved was Trilla, who was the one that was supposedly done wrong by Cere, the Jedi. And I was like, no, Cere is right. I didn't do this on purpose, but actually, Cere is right. Ray says, I hate ponchos, right? Ponchos. Who's wearing the ponchos in that game? That's what I want to know.
I thought that was really funny that people on Twitter were complaining about ponchos, because I remember being a little kid and my parents like, you don't need an umbrella or a raincoat, wear a poncho. And I was like, what is a poncho? So I felt very validated that people playing a video game also understood my real life feelings.
Why this poncho? Why? Why is it there?
It's a poncho.
I do wear ponchos on Kashyyyk because it like looks like it's raining a lot. But like other times you're like, here I am on this perfectly dry planet. I'm gonna wear a poncho, and I'm like, no one has ever had that thought. No one has ever gone, you know what? Today's a poncho day. It's Poncho Wednesday, you know? And like, no, it's not. It's never Poncho Wednesday. Ever. Never once has there been a Poncho Wednesday.
There's gonna be a Poncho Wednesday in the Buddy Cop movie.
Yes. And Yoda will be like, ponchos we wear. And Mace will be like, this is dumb. And
yes! I'm mentioning it at brunch.
And low-key, Yoda hates the ponchos too, but he loves how much Mace hates the ponchos. So that's why they're wearing them.
I have a Clone Wars question. Are you ready for Gina to reveal that she's a bad fan?
I already have by myself, so it's fine.
So we have the ship is falling, it's dying, it's crashing, and they're in the gravitational pull of a moon, right? Did they say it was a moon?
They said it was a moon, which is how I knew it wasn't Zeffo.
So we crash on there, and then towards the end, I was like, this looks like Hoth. And then I was like, wait, is Hoth a moon or a planet? And then I was like, I'm not going to Google that. And then I was like, is this just like fun that I get to think it looks like Hoth, but it's not Hoth? And then I was like, you know what's better than Googling it in my private Google where I can figure it out? Asking on a stream where for the rest of eternity, everyone can know Gina's a really bad Star Wars fan.
That's fair. I don't... Hoth, I don't think is a moon. I'm trying to remember. There's a line of dialogue in Empire, and I think they're like the something planet in the Hoth system. It could be Renvar. What I think is trippy is when they land, there's no snow, and then there is snow. So I'm like, is this a planet in Star Wars with seasons?
Maybe.
That might be the most mind-blowing part of the episode. Is that it could have seasons. That, or I was like, maybe there was no snow when they landed because like the ship melted the snow and then it landed again, and then I was like, that sounds too complicated. Like, I think I have officially reached overthinking Clone Wars when I'm like, maybe there was no snow because the ship crashed.
Oh gosh.
That was when I was time to just go shh.
You've had a long day.
Oh man. This was a good talk.
Yes, very much so. Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You've seen the end of Clone Wars twice now. How do you feel?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
It hasn't really settled in that it's actually done. And like that's because like one time I thought it ended and then Netflix was like, JK LOL, here's season 6. And then it was gone for a long time, and then they were like, JK LOL, Disney Plus has season 7. So I think somewhere in the back of my mind, they're like, but like it won't happen because it is actually done. We have reached the end of the Clone Wars. But like I feel good. Like I feel like the particular beat at the particular end, I wanted that Ahsoka Rex conversation, and I'm kind of in the I really wish we would have gotten it, but the story we got was so amazing, and like just like not looking at it at just the last episode with just 30 seconds that I didn't get, but looking at it as like an hour and 20-minute movie, um with just the layers and everything they were doing. I mean, it drove me to doing live streams instead of reviews, so like that was how amazing this was. And I think I'm just feeling ready for the next thing. Like I think this kind of took me from like I think regardless of whether or not you liked Rise of Skywalker or hated Rise of Skywalker or somewhere in the middle, it was the end of an era. And it's always that confusion. Like as somebody who loved the film, I was still like, now what do we do? You know, it's a long wait to season 2 of Mandalorian. And so I think this has me excited for like there's so many stories ahead. Like I'm excited for the Taika movie that just got announced, and the Disney Plus. There's another Disney Plus that's getting developed by the person behind Russian Doll, which I've never seen, but like I'm just excited that there's another show in development, and we have Cassian and Obi-Wan coming, and we like it feels again like I'm like okay, like I'm ready to go. I think it's a weird way to feel when something's done, but like I'm ready to go.
I know that for me and a lot of people like me who either were lukewarm towards or did not like The Rise of Skywalker, it's a very nice feeling to be excited about Star Wars again. So I'm very much like on a high where I'm just like, even knowing that we were going to get Clone Wars, knowing that we still get The Mandalorian season 2, Obi-Wan, all that, I was still very much like, okay, but am I going to like it? Because for the first time I didn't, ever, I didn't like something. And now I'm just like, give me everything again. I want it all. And so I feel very appreciative, very happy. And it's still very much a good time to be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. I'm glad you feel that way, and I'm always happy when there's something like Star Wars that does that, because like I said something about this. I've been live tweeting Star Wars films, and hey, Rule, welcome. And I said something when I was watching Solo that it's really unfortunate that like 5 people went to see Solo in theaters, because I feel like after The Last Jedi, Solo was the movie we needed, right? Like Last Jedi, which I also loved, like it was that movie that really made you sit down and think, and you had to kind of like you had to tackle it and decide how you feel about it. And even after you tackled it, you might have still decided you didn't like it. But that was one where you like it kind of needed to sit with you. And then Solo is just pulp. And so whether you came down on loving Last Jedi or not loving Last Jedi or somewhere in between, Solo was kind of like what we all needed to heal, I think. And then unfortunately it got I will forever blame the marketing of that movie, and I will forever blame it came out like 3 weeks after Infinity War, because there's no other reason why. Like the fact that I asked people if they had seen Solo yet, and they went, "It's already out." Like that was when I knew Solo was like, you should never not know that a Star Wars movie is out. Like that was the problem.
Yeah.
And I will forever be mad about that. But like that's what we needed. And I feel like after something like Rise of Skywalker, which was more of that high octane adventure, not as much of a thing that's gonna like challenge you and how you see Star Wars. I guess unless you really came down on liking Last Jedi, but like it wasn't really supposed to challenge you. Something like Clone Wars, where now we're wrestling with those deeper things. Like I feel like there's such a diversity in Star Wars storytelling in terms of mediums and time periods, and now with some of their choices might actually be reflected behind the camera too. But like, I think that's the benefit, and I know it's hard. I've experienced that with other fandoms where like it's hard when you've not liked a thing to dive back in, but sometimes that's what you need to do, if that makes sense. Hey, Star Raptors.
No, it makes.
Happening. Thank you. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say no. I think it makes absolute sense. And the other thing I think about is, and so this is not a diss on something like The Force Awakens for
Yep.
people in chat who, I mean, you know that
Yeah.
Force Awakens is my favorite Star Wars movie. I
Yep.
love it to pieces, but it's not a movie that makes me think. I can
Right.
put it on and watch it back to back 7 times in a few days and be fine. And I have to prepare myself. And I like The Last Jedi. I watched The Last Jedi. And I think about life afterwards. And I'm going to think about life after watching this Clone Wars. So
Yep.
I need the balance of we're just going to have a fun space adventure like Solo, where the stakes are high,
Yep.
but are they really that high?
Right.
Versus now I'm going to think about everything I've ever done and all of my relationships after watching the Clone Wars.
Right.
And so I need both. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is like, if I'm gonna just pop in a Star Wars movie, I'm way more likely to pop in Solo or Force Awakens. I love The Last Jedi, but I can't just pop The Last Jedi in. And I know some people who are like,
Right.
that is their bread and butter, and if they're gonna watch Star Wars, they watch Last Jedi. And I'm like, I just can't. Like, it's heavy. It's a heavy movie, and I get engrossed when I watch it, but it's heavy. And it's the same thing with Rogue One. I like Rogue One, but like, it's heavy, and
yeah. Revenge of the Sith is now a movie I can't just pop in anymore. So I'm going to like Phantom Menace to just pop in.
Yeah, it's just like I just need something fun. I need something pulpy. And again, I think Star Wars is stronger for having different kinds of movies that fit you in different kinds of moods.
Yeah.
But what Ray is saying, disagree here. I think any of the Star Wars films can make you take part, even TFA or Solo. I agree with that. I think the thing with Star Wars is certain movies, even like A New Hope, I think you have movies where it's optional. Like, you can watch it as a popcorn movie, or you can dissect it. Where I think something like Last Jedi or Rogue One doesn't give you the popcorn option, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, because I see TFA as a popcorn movie, which once again isn't a diss on it.
Right.
I love it. But when I actually, put on the maybe English major hat, and then I start thinking about the themes presented, it also has found family, what does it mean, et cetera, et cetera. It's the beginning, so they're not as fully fleshed out. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff to think about when you get to those. I mean, Solo, you can think about the culture of Corellia and what does it mean that they're kids and they have to do X, Y, and Z, and what does it mean to feel betrayed, and Beckett and all these things.
Yep.
And so there's definitely something deep. I do agree that it gives you the option of having your other moments.
Ray's saying she watches Rogue One like a popcorn movie. Do you like pain?
Oh my God. Kudos to you. I could not. I basically cry. I cry at the end of Rogue One all the time.
I mean, like, if we just had like a Krennic supercut, maybe. But like,
I mean, sometimes I'm just like, it's a good. I feel like crying right now. Let's go, Rogue One.
She says yes. I watch Revenge of the Sith the most. That makes sense.
Well, and Revenge of the Sith is so strange because Anakin versus Obi-Wan is actually my favorite lightsaber duel.
So good.
And so sometimes I'll just like go to it on YouTube and I'm like, this hurts me, but this is so good right now.
Yeah, it's true. Well, yeah, and Rogue One is largely about hope too. That's true. And like, again, Star Wars in general, I think the strength of it is that you can always have that. I feel like doing the deep dive thing, and then there's also the I just want to enjoy it, and you can do either way. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong way, but I definitely have my movies that I'm more inclined to be like, this one just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But yeah. But people talking about Clone Wars movie. See, here's the thing. A lot of people include the Clone Wars movie in their rankings or like their watch order, and I support that because I support that movie. But like, I can't like go from Attack of the Clones to the Clone Wars movie to Revenge of the Sith, because like the Clone Wars movie, like then there's just so much unresolvedness. Like, it's like, okay, so then like Ahsoka's there and then she's not. Like, I'm like, if I'm gonna watch it in between, I'm gonna watch. I did a tweet yesterday about like what order people watch it, and they're like, I watch it in full chronological order, which means after Revenge of the Sith, I watch like or in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, I watch all of Clone Wars, and then after Revenge of the Sith, I watch Rebels. And I'm like, what kind of time do you have? Like,
oh my goodness, I don't have that kind of.
I mean, like,
movie
props to
opportunities.
you. Like, I salute you. I think that's great. But like, when I'm like, I want like a movie like marathon. I'm not like, and now here's 7 seasons of television before the next movie.
I could see like leading up to the Rise of Skywalker, I spent every weekend watching a Star Wars movie. So
Yep.
I could see like leading up to it, like a year out,
Yeah.
deciding how to watch everything. But I couldn't just do that.
Yeah.
So yay for you.
The correct, like, that's, I'm not slamming you. Like, there's no shade, but there were just a lot of people who were like dead serious. Like, no, you watch Rebels in between 3 and 4. I'm like, when do you do that?
Oh my gosh. Now I want to try. I would need a significant amount of time, but I kind of want to try.
But we'll see. I'm definitely rewatching Rebels now that Clone Wars is done. I was specifically waiting for that, but now that Clone Wars is done, I'm like, all right, it's gonna be Rebels time, which will be interesting because I've not done a full revisit of the series. Talking about being a bad fan.
Now that we've got the Mandalorian documentary, I'm gonna go back and rewatch the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think because they're doing the episodes weekly, so like I still haven't watched the Mando doc, so my thought was to watch the Mando doc and then rewatch the episode that the doc is about each week.
Yeah, so I couldn't decide if I was gonna watch the episode and then the doc, or the doc and then the episode, and I still have not decided which one I want to do.
You could watch the episode, the doc, and then the episode.
Honestly, I wouldn't put that past me.
Oh man, Rule says I got a spot in this place. One of these days I'm gonna get Ray and Christy on here too once their life is settled down.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
This has been great actually that you've been filling in for Django in this straight time, because I actually have like mass amounts of anxiety asking for guests. So this has been a really good practice thing for me, to like have to schedule around with somebody who's not Django. But
I mean, this has been like the best thing in the world, so thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's great.
So it's been great, and we're gonna have you back tomorrow to discuss the Mandalorian show, which I'm really excited, because I know you're a big fan of Mando and it's been brought up, but
yes,
but
everyone actually gets to see the freak out.
I'm excited.
Of me.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. But yeah, if there's no one else has anything else, we've been going 90 minutes on this one.
Every single time you tell me that, I'm like, didn't feel like it. Okay.
Oh man, but yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, I think we'll call it here. For in the chat who might not know, John Barry's out there, Star Raptor's out there. My friend Corellian Conversations is getting a YouTube channel started up. I'm trying to think if you guys also like Star Wars things, you should check out their channels. Ray is on Hearts of Kyber podcast, as Rule was talking about. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else in my chat who does. If I missed you, it was accidental. Please don't take it personally. But like, also do Clone Wars reviews if you want more discussion and you haven't. I know John was live earlier today, so please check that out. And of course, Gina can be found on Unmistakably Star Wars from time to time, which is pretty cool. And then we can all share the love. But again, thank you so much for being here. We should be live tomorrow talking about Mandalorian, which will be great. I ran out of words at this point, so I don't know how to say goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. See, you're great co-host.